Good evening and welcome to the program. We have heard now from the politicians and all of the day's top stories, and now it is your turn. We are live and we are ready to hear from you. This is Raw Politics, your call. It is so good to have you with us. Now, you know, we love to hear from you. You know, our lines are open. We're asking you 3 questions tonight, as we always do every evening. Now, we do want to know what you think on all of today's biggest stories. So, what are we asking you tonight? Here it is.
The moment Notre-Dame's iconic spire collapsed, as fire ravaged the 850-year-old building.
So familiar, and now it's burnt.
Paris is crying now, not just me.
It's been called a symbol of Paris, of France, and of human achievement. But what does Notre-Dame mean to you? Troubled waters. Fishermen from the Netherlands descended on Strasbourg today. They say the incoming EU-wide ban on electric pulse fishing will hit the industry and hit working-class people in their pockets.
We do have to make a living, though.
But proponents of the ban say the practice damages the ocean's biodiversity. We want to know, do environmental policies hurt the working class?
During the European Council, one of the leaders warned us not to be dreamers and that we shouldn't think that Brexit could be reversed. I didn't respond at the time, but today in front of you, I would like to say, at this rather difficult moment in our history, we need dreamers and dreams.
EU Chief Donald Tusk hasn't stopped dreaming about stopping Brexit, but for some, a reversal on Article 50 would be a nightmare. Could Donald Tusk's dream of keeping Britain in the EU ever come true? Or is the EU's dream of Brexit reversal unrealistic? Have your say, Europe. What does Notre-Dame mean to you? Do environmental policies hurt the working class? And is the EU's dream of Brexit reversal unrealistic?
Well, our lines are open now. You know what to do. You can call us for free at 00800 33337 002. Our team, they're waiting for your calls. And you can also email us at rawpoll@euronews.com. And you can look for us on Twitter and Facebook. We're there live as well. Use the hashtag #RawPolitics. I'm already waiting for your comments here. Do join in on the debate with us. And tonight we have with us Marietje Schaake. She is a Dutch MEP with the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. And Seb Dance. He is a British MEP with the Socialist and Democrats group. We will be joining them later for this conversation. But first of all, let's get all the latest headlines from our team in Lyon with Isabel.
And good evening to you, Tessa. Yeah, these are our top stories, and it's Paris's Notre-Dame Cathedral, which has been left blackened and broken by the fire that raged through it just 24 hours ago. And today, France's wealthiest have responded with over 700 million euros to help repair the beloved church. Recovery teams have been surveying the damage to the cathedral's exterior, which was under renovation when the fire broke out. Firefighters finally put out the blaze early on Tuesday morning after more than 12 hours on the scene. The fire claimed the 850-year-old building's spire and roof, but spared its bell towers and its famed stained glass rose windows. Notre-Dame has survived, but the hard work of rebuilding has yet to begin. The first job for French authorities will be to assess the damage to the cathedral building and also to its many priceless artefacts. Well, Culture Minister Franck Heister says there's already some good news. The most precious goods have been secured and will hopefully be transported to storage in the Louvre from Friday. And those are our top stories. Now, back over to you, Tessa.
All right. Thank you for that, Isabel and our team there in Lyon. Also, we just heard that French President Emmanuel Macron, he's expected to speak at around 8 p.m. local time. So after this program, we'll be hearing from him on that. The Notre-Dame story, it is quite a tragedy. So first of all, we are asking you to call us, get in touch. We already have some callers, so thank you very much for that. The questions we're asking you, what does Notre-Dame mean to you? Second question, do environmental policies hurt the working class? There's some people who were protesting here in Parliament saying exactly that. And also, the third question, is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? Can that even happen? All right, let's talk to our MEPs who are joining us tonight. Let's start with the Notre-Dame story. We were going to hear from Emmanuel Macron tonight. I mean, this was such a tragedy. What was your reaction yesterday when you heard about this?
Well, of course, I was shocked to see the images on social media. It was really overwhelming. The flames in this landmark that is so iconic to Paris, you know, like the Eiffel Tower, the Notre-Dame. It's one of those buildings and pieces of cultural heritage, very important religious place for people who are Catholics, that, you know, you just really want to preserve for generations to come. But what I found beautiful to offset the tragedy of the flames were the outpourings of support for Catholics, for Parisians, for the French. It was really also a moment of enormous solidarity. And I do think that I mean, I hope that carries a long way of heartfelt support in the face of such tragedy. I mean, the bells of the cathedral here in Strasbourg were ringing in solidarity, and people here were also collecting money already at the entrance of the plenary. So I hope the French feel Europe's support.
And we were actually asking MEPs today, you know, what it meant to them. So what about you, Seb? What does the Notre-Dame mean to you? I mean, I think a lot of us have memories of the Notre-Dame. What about to you?
I shared a few pictures of varying photographic quality, I should point out, from my various trips to Paris. And every time I go to Paris, I try and sneak a peek of the Notre-Dame, because for me it's emblematic, obviously, of a city, but of so much more. It's a thing of beauty. And I was thinking, how would I feel if the Dome of St. Paul's were to collapse? I would be inconsolable. And I hope that the Parisians feel the love, as Marietta says, from Europe, but you know, from all of us, because I think it's touched us all very, very deeply. I shed a tear for an 850-year-old building last night, which I never thought I'd do. But you know, those images were so shocking and so powerful, and it speaks to so much about who we are and what we value. And it's not just the kind of material things that we can get easily or work towards. It's these timeless pieces that represent us, and to see it in flames was tragic. But to hear that it was saved late last night before I went to bed was just one of the most wonderful moments.
Yes.
And I mean, and also this building, this monument, as we were saying, has been historically, and it's been through so many key points in history that really does define Europe. And I think that's what, as you were saying, people identify. It's not just a Christian symbol. It's not just a French symbol. None of that. It transcends all of that. And I think that's an interesting point that we saw on the streets as well.
Well, I also think it is remarkable to see at such a sad moment how people identify with it and with each other. People were singing in the street. I thought that was very, very powerful. People here were talking about it.
And even Tajani was, you know, he had called for people's
to donate.
Donate. Exactly.
And, you know, I think many of us did. And I think that the very uniting and connecting power that we saw is something exceptional. I mean, that speaks to the strength of the symbol of this church and of Paris as a place where so many people.
But after all of this, the questions will come, and you know, probably too early still. But who should be paying for this, and how is France certainly can't afford that? But who is supposed to pay for this?
Well, I mean, already was it 700 million that has been raised. Yeah. It's not quite that much in the collection pot here yet, but you know, we'll certainly be putting our own contributions to it. Well,
substantial part of it.
I mean, maybe there will be EU funding. I don't know. I have no idea how much it costs to repair a 13th century cathedral, but I would suspect rather a lot.
Cheap, yeah.
And of course we've got to remember that the people who are working on the roof, you know, there'll be a lot of attention on the reconstruction, but you know, for them this is a labour of love. You know, I mean, it's a very specialist craft what they're doing, and I'm sure many of them will be absolutely devastated today because, of course, not only do they have to deal with the loss, but they have to deal with the potential blame that might be coming their way. So, you know, there's an awful lot at stake here, and I think, you know, we need to take the necessary time to, of course, find out what happened. But, let's all contribute. Let's make this I said it in my very bad French earlier in the plenary that we will rebuild Notre-Dame together. I meant it. I mean, I can't go up with any stone work or woodwork. I'm not suitably skilled, but I will do anything and everything I can. So.
And also what's interesting, well, last night Emmanuel Macron was supposed to give a speech, but it was on, policies, economic policies, and how to assuage the protests in this country, and this certainly just overshadowed all of that. All right. Speaking about policies, and we did in the Raw Politics program earlier, we talked about environmental policies and the impact on the working class people. And again, going back to France, the Yellow Vest protesters certainly brought this up, how fuel tax, yes, it might be good for the environment, but it's hurting people like them. Let's ask that question again, put it again to you. Do environmental policies, aggressive ones, is this hurting working class people because they feel it is hurting them?
I haven't seen the evidence. I don't personally work on environmental policy, so I'm definitely not the expert, but it shouldn't. It should be an effort that does not disproportionately impact the people who are already, struggling most economically. But I think the notion of aggressive environmental policies are really in the common interest, and they are not meant to target anyone. They are meant to protect our society, but especially the next generation. And the people I meet are convinced that that's necessary. But of course, there's a responsibility on policymakers to make sure that there are adequate measures and that it doesn't get trickled down to the so-called working class.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, the idea is noble, but so why do the people feel this? I mean, this is a genuine issue that politicians have to address.
Well, it's more than noble, it's necessary, and we have to get real about this. We can't pretend that you can carry on as we are. We can't. We will destroy many ecosystems. We will render the planet a very difficult place, not just for other forms of life, but for ourselves. It will be unsustainable to have a human population of 7 billion living in the way that we continue to live. So you have to make some incredibly difficult decisions. And frankly, the ability of our politics to kind of accommodate that, I question it at the moment, because those decisions, they need to be made soon, and we need to have a proper conversation with everybody and bring the public with us on this, because you can't do it against public will, and it will require a lot of money. A lot of money.
But it
shouldn't come from those with the least.
But I think there's also something to be said for the impact of environmental damage, like dust in cities, exhaust of cars, impacting the working classes who live in cities, sometimes in poor housing, under bad conditions. So the idea that there is an impact on everybody is also very much felt by those who have the least means to move out of the city or find better protection for their health.
Well, we just want to remind our viewers the questions that we are asking. We're asking you to call in and keep sending your comments on social media. So the questions are, what does Notre-Dame mean to you? Do environmental policies hurt the working class, as we were just discussing? And is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? All right. Let's talk about Brexit now. It's a topic that doesn't. Let's bring in our caller. So we have Amar, Amar from Manchester here. Amar, good to have you with us. Thank you for joining and for waiting on the line. Actually, so what do you think? Is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I think as time goes by, I think it does become more unrealistic. And I would point out specifically the Conservatives. For me, they are the wild card. I think this whole mess emerged specifically due to electoral reasons, with the march of UKIP and the danger that posed them back in 2013, 2014. And I think, as we are seeing right now through national polls, etc., we're seeing, a kind of dissolution of the Conservatives in the polls, around 5 to 10% nationally across a wide range of polls. And I think this will help push more and more Conservative MPs to back May's deal, or to kind of do something even more radical. As we've been seeing recently in local news, a lot of local Conservative associations are pushing for rule change that would allow them to depose of Theresa May as premiership. So I think, again, what the Conservatives do next will define what happens next. So we cannot say right now that another referendum or revoking Article 50 is on the agenda. It's all up in the air. So, it's all down to what the Conservatives do.
So you are
next.
actually hopeful that Theresa May's deal will get through. Would you like to react to that?
Yeah, sure. I think you're completely correct about the this being an internal fight within the Conservative Party. Of course, this entire process has really been a conversation within the Conservative Party. Only now are we starting to have cross-party talks at this ridiculously late stage. But I think I take a slightly different analysis. I agree the Conservatives are basically finished. Yes, you can stick a blue rosette on someone in a Tory area, they'll get elected, but they're not a coherent force anymore.
So,
but actually, as the inconsistencies of Brexit become revealed, nobody wants to take ownership of it.
Yeah, so this is the concept, the idea that Brexit will it or will it not happen. So what do you think, Maricho? As Donald Tusk say, he actually just thinks that it's not going to happen.
Well, I hear a lot of hope here in Europe because, of course, the vast majority of us here in the EU 27, here in the European Parliament, would have never wanted to see the splitting off of one of our most valued member states and all of our dear friends, even if we're representing different political parties. So the fact that here nobody's excited about Brexit is not a secret. But I do think at this point, actually, that the postponing without a clear solution on the UK's side in view is tricky, because hope is not a strategy. And to import all of the depolarization, as well as the sort of, Brexiteers that now see a new opportunity if they were to run in the European elections. The notion of them being not heard, which of course they've been dominating the debate for years now, but the narrative is that they're not heard.
Okay,
I think it is toxic for all of the EU. So postponement is not without cost, and I think we have to look very critically at why we're giving more space to
I want to ask
drama.
Amar though. Amar, do you think Brexit is going to happen?
I'm on shaky ground. Specifically, I wouldn't want it to happen. I am in favour of a second referendum. I am very pro-European.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Amar from Manchester, for calling us. I do want to read a comment from David Martin from Spain. He said, no, Brexit will not be reversed. We do not want to be ruled by the councillors who have not been elected and who cannot be voted out. So he doesn't think it's going to be in Spain. He's not going to be reversed, he says. All right, we will be right back. Again, we're asking you the three questions. What does Notre-Dame mean to you? Do environmental policies hurt the working class? And is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? You know what to do, how to get in touch. We'll be right back after a short break. All right, welcome back to Raw Politics, Your Call. So again, just to remind our viewers the questions we're asking, we'd like you to call in and answer, what does Notre-Dame mean to you? The second question, do you think environmental policies, aggressive environmental policies, are actually hurting the working class? And on our Brexit question, is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? So that was the question we ended with before the break. So let us continue what we're saying. I mean, I understand that majority of Europeans do want the UK to stay, but don't you think there is also that opinion, which I've been hearing more of, like, can you just please go? Can we just get this over with? It's already a bit too much.
Yeah, well, I feel like that.
Do you?
Yes.
Please end this nightmare, frankly.
Yeah.
But, the reality is, unfortunately, this is a process of working things out, and that is taking time. And as I say, as people look at the various models of Brexit, they have to then take ownership of the negatives, and no one's prepared to do that. That's why I suspect it will not happen. But, that's just my suspicion.
So Seb thinks it will not happen. But what about Clive from Staffordshire? What do you think? Do you think the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal, do you think that's unrealistic?
Oh, very much so. I'm very much hoping for the elections coming up shortly. I think the European Union are going to be in for an almighty shock. There will be an awful lot of Brexiteers voting for UKIP and, of course, Nigel Farage's Brexit Party. And I think the MEPs of the Conservatives and the Labour are in for a real rough future.
So do you think, yes or no, do you think Brexit is going to happen?
Yes, absolutely, yes. I think
maybe not right now, but
delays there for the no. I think the delays put in there through the establishment and the European Union working in cahoots with one another, but it will happen eventually.
Okay,
it'll just take a bit longer.
Okay, let's stay there on the line, Clive. Let's get our MEP's reaction. Sure,
yeah, I think there's a kind of the creation that there has to be a willing force blocking this, I think is one of the sort of more dangerous ideas that's out there. There's not some kind of conspiracy to stop this, it's the idea itself. The idea doesn't stack up, because as soon as you start to create a version where you want all the benefits of the European Union but don't want to follow any of the rules, of course it doesn't work. And that's the reality. That's why it's taking longer.
But what about what Clive was saying, that it's eventually going to happen anyway? It's going to happen, and he said the EU's in for a shock.
Well, I do think there's a lot at stake in the elections. And I think there's a very clear choice between those, the Brexiteer types that we also see in our countries, that are coming onto the political scene with a sledgehammer and that want to destroy the European Union. And then there's others, like the party that I belong to, which is a progressive liberal party, that see a lot that needs to be improved in the EU, but we want to have a constructive approach in building a better European Union. So I do think there's a lot at stake. I hope people will vote. I hope young people will vote, because they could have made the difference, for example, in the Brexit referendum. But when it comes to this notion that, you know, we in the EU altogether are allegedly, as the caller said, you know, holding the UK against its will, not at all. I mean, this extension is at the request of British politicians. It was a difficult decision. I mean, not everybody agreed. President Macron, and I have a lot of sympathy for his point of view, said, no, let's get this over with. I actually think there's a lot to be said for that. So there is no such thing as holding a country against its will. But the Parliament, representatives of the British people, have on the one hand said we cannot leave without a deal. On the other hand, they have not supported the withdrawal agreement that's on the table. So that leaves little options at the moment. I wish them all the luck in working it out. We can't solve their problems for them, and that is why there's an extension. It is not our wish at all.
The notion that the EU is holding the EU against the UK against its will. Clive, I would like to ask you, you brought up the European elections, and you say, well, there will be a whole lot of Brexiteers coming into the European Parliament. Do you think they are going to be troublemakers in this parliament?
Oh, massively. Unfortunately, what that lady had just said was slightly incorrect, because when we voted, as they all know, on the paper it said leave or remain.
Okay, but
it didn't give the option. It didn't give the option of no deal. A deal was never mentioned on our ballot paper. It was leave or remain. And the British public voted in a democratic vote to leave.
You can respond to Clive.
That's why it's going to get a lot. It's going to get a lot more. How can I word this correctly?
Okay.
It's difficult, maybe. Fraught. But if I could just come in, sorry to interrupt, but the problem here is that the leave proposition was very much predicated on a deal. The leave proposition was that we would get the economic benefits of staying in, but we would be able to go off and do our own trade deals, etc., etc. So I'm sorry, but there was no campaign that actively said no deal, that we would just simply sever all ties. In fact, most of the campaigners I recall from the referendum said that it would be absurd to leave things like the single market. One, Dan Hannan, said that no one was threatening our position in the single market. Owen Paterson said that we needed a Norway-style approach. Even Messrs Farage and others cited Norway as examples. So I think it's a fantasy to think that no deal is somehow what the majority of Leave voters were supporting. It clearly isn't.
And Clive, I mean...
May I come back in there?
Yes,
please?
Go ahead.
It's very important. I've actually got the leaflet which states clearly to leave the customs union is on that leaflet that David Cameron sent to us.
But that's...
So he's not actually giving us the truth there.
But you didn't believe the Remain side.
To leave the customs union.
But the leave...
Am I correct, yes or no?
But the leave material didn't say that. You're citing the Remain... you're citing a government leaflet. But if you vote leave, you support the leave proposition. You're not supporting the Remain proposition. It's the Remain side here that was saying that there was a potential to leave the customs union and the single market, not the leave side. That's the important difference.
But I mean, I also think just in general, I mean, when one votes in elections, you know, you vote for a party. You vote for people representing you. You cannot vote in one election for all the possible details. And it is upon the elected representatives of the British people to carry Brexit through, which is, the understood task coming from the referendum in the best possible way. And I believe that there is a majority, as has been articulated by the Parliament, that the best possible way is not to have a hard Brexit without arrangements in relation to the UK's most important partner, whether they're in the EU or out of the EU. So someone has to take this responsibility, and unfortunately it's not the Brexiteers that are taking this responsibility. In fact, I think they've been sharing a lot of irresponsible lies. They've used fraudulent ways of financing their campaigns. There's still a lot of questions about where money is coming from, including for the Brexit Party.
Sure.
There is a lot that needs to be investigated.
Yeah.
But there are also people who are seeking to take their responsibility in these very, very difficult circumstances.
Okay, we'd like to thank Clive from Staffordshire for calling there, joining in on the debate. I want to read a comment from Mark Whittle. He says, "It is embarrassing being British. Constant criticism of the EU being undemocratic, yet they're about to be European parliamentary elections, and the House of Lords is unelected." So he says that. That's Mark Whittle there. All right, yeah, so, you can feel the palpable anger still out there.
But there's also a lot of very, very interesting dynamics going on when you see Jacob Rees-Mogg and other Brexiteers sort of celebrating how they're going to be pains in the neck, and I'm being diplomatic, the minute that they sit in this European Parliament again, through which they're essentially confirming sitting at the table, you have more impact. If you want to be a total destroyer of the table you're sitting on, you can have more impact sitting on the table than Brexiting away from it. So it is just ironic to see the Farages of this world gearing up with such enthusiasm to have another run here in the European Parliament and to have the impact that, in theory, they're seeking to forsake.
Well,
so I think it is hypocritical.
Want you to join and see if you agree with Maricha or Seb here. Do join in on the debates. Keep sending your comments and call us or send us an email. So the question we're asking, what does Notre-Dame mean to you? Do environmental policies hurt the working class? And our Brexit question, is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? So do stay with us. We will be right back after a short break. Welcome back to Raw Politics, Your Call. We are coming to you live from Strasbourg. All right, just a recap of the questions we're asking you. 3 questions. What does Notre-Dame mean to you? And the second question, do environmental policies hurt the working class? And our Brexit question, is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? All right, let's go straight to Mary from Sheffield. Mary, what do you think? Do you think the EU's dream of a reversal of Brexit, is that unrealistic?
It's totally unrealistic. Reason being, what is important? Democracy and the democratic process, or the EU just winning over the UK?
So do you think Brexit is going to happen?
Or they may as well have no democracy. Pardon?
Do you think Brexit is going to happen?
Well, if it doesn't, then democracy hasn't worked. Your democratic process is totally zero. Or why would anybody have any elections if they get overturned? Also, if you go back to David Cameron's leaflet, it actually stated if we vote leave, it would mean leaving the single market and the customs union.
I think it goes back to your point, Sam.
It spent an awful lot of millions having those printed in Germany. Obviously, it would remain if David Cameron totally remain. If it had been leave, it would have them printed in the UK.
Mary, hi, it's Seb. Can I ask you, you say that it's democratically necessary, but what exactly is Brexit?
Well,
hang on a sec, Mary, sorry, just a second. What Brexit is it you need to see being delivered that, in your mind, fulfills democracy?
It's not in my mind. We had a vote to vote leave.
Sure.
Or remain.
No. But,
leave was.
Okay. But what is leave? What is leave? Is that Norway? Is that EEA? Is that Canada?
That.
So it's leaving everything.
Come on. Look, on David Cameron's leaflet, it actually stated that vote leave means leaving the EU leaving the single market and leaving the customs
But that was a
union.
Remain leaflet. You
It
presumably
means
didn't
leaving.
believe that leaflet because you voted Leave. You believed the Leave side, right? You didn't believe the Remain side.
Oh, of course I don't. I voted out in 1975 and Leave in 2016.
So why would you cite a Remain leaflet for evidence of what you as a Leave voter believe?
Because he did actually honestly state on his leaflet to everybody that by voting Leave, get it, I'd read it.
But the Leave literature didn't.
It would mean leaving the single market and the customs union.
But the Leave campaign didn't say that.
My sense is that what we're hearing from a lot of the callers and in this debate as well, that for a lot of people what was most important is to break with the status quo and to cast a protest vote. Now, the impact that this has had in the EU 27 is that there is hardly any political party left that is advocating for leaving the European Union. Because the consequences have been seen in the UK to be quite devastating, very chaotic, and actually I think of it as a process in reverse. The thinking about what it would mean came after the Brexit referendum. The talking to the opposition, or to try to form a coalition behind the withdrawal agreement, those talks started after Theresa May had already shaken hands with the EU 27. The declaration in the promises of the campaigns of Leave that it was going to be a happy end, that Brexit was going to be such a great success, were made before the plot added up. So really, there are so many lessons to be learned here. On the one hand, that a protest vote has real consequences, but also that it's very difficult to have such an important vote for reasons that we started in the beginning, for internal party political conflict. And nobody really taking ownership of the devastating consequences that we're seeing now.
And also, as Seb was saying, in defining Leave, there's a question you keep asking the callers is, what does a Brexit look like today and what does it mean to you? All right, we'd like to thank Mary from Sheffield for calling. We have Petros from London. We'd like to ask you the same question. So is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic?
No, I think it's perfectly realistic. I think for all the reasons that people have discussed ad nauseam, basically ending up in a referendum. It would have to be through a referendum. But I think also there's one other point. A lot of these, even the sort of rabidly pro-Brexit politicians like Nigel Farage, etc., it's been obvious for months that he's angling for another stab at becoming an MP in the next general election in this country. And it stands to reason, really. The last thing he wants, don't forget, this man is a cynically opportunistic politician par excellence. The last thing he wants is a quick exit from the EU, even on WTO. It's a bit like him and UKIP a couple of years ago. Once we've left the EU, what role does he have? What does he do? What purpose does he have?
This is similar to what you were saying earlier, Marisha, about being at the table. So, it's sort of, is it opportunism? Is this what we see, where we see from politicians?
Statements on very complex things. I've been serving on the International Trade Committee for more than 7 years here in the European Parliament. Trade is difficult. I hear promises flying around as if it's nothing. Oh, we'll just leave on WTO terms. We'll leave on Norway, Canada, plus, whatever. People, I don't think, appreciate what those promises entail. Don't romanticize leaving on WTO terms. It is the bare minimum of conditions that we have with countries like China. And does the UK want to be on the same kind of level of arrangements with the EU as China? And then people who are promising WTO seem to forget that there has to be consensus around the new arrangements. So it's not just, a single side decision that the UK can make after Brexit. There has to be agreement by the other WTO countries. So really, I think people need to be informed better about what the consequences
of
all
these options that get so convoluted.
And then they should have another choice at least.
I do want to ask Petros on the line from London there. So you said that it is perfectly realistic for a Brexit reversal. So to simplify, do you think Brexit is going to happen, yes or no?
I couldn't say either way. I desperately hope not.
Okay.
your callers, the other callers you've had are sort of serial Brexiteers, what you might call in Trumpian terms, the sort of Farage-Rees-Mogg base. It just,
So you hope it's not going to happen?
ignoring reality.
Okay.
Sorry?
No, so you hope it's not going to happen. Okay, let's have Seb Dance reply to that.
Hi, Petrus. I was really... the comment you made about Farage being cynical, I think, is very important here, because if you're nowhere near the delivery of this, as of course he isn't, it's then very easy to stand on the sidelines and say they're betraying because they're not delivering on what we want. And that stokes public anger, and I think that's why so many Leave voters feel that they're being let down.
All right.
And actually, it's a lie that Farage is holding on to.
All right, hold that thought. And we'd like to thank Petros from London for calling. Just before we go to break, I'd like to read this from Anne V. She says, sorry, I missed the Dutch lady's name, but she is spot on about the situation, how it's been handled backwards. So she agrees with you. All right, we will be back after a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Raw Politics, your call. Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, one of the questions we're asking you tonight is the EU's dream of a Brexit reversal unrealistic? That was what we were talking about before the break. So let's bring in our next caller, Michael from Liverpool. Michael, so what about you? What do you think? Is a reversal of Brexit unrealistic?
No, it's totally realistic. In fact, it's essential. I'm actually Irish by birth, and we have a lot of us living here in Liverpool. And I can tell you, the people that promoted the whole Brexit idea did it on the basis of lies and misinformation, and they should wake up to the reality. Without going into all the different situations that you have discussed many times in your program, from an Irish perspective, the border, which thankfully the European Union have recognized that there was an international treaty signed. And so your Brexiteer friends can understand this treaty was guaranteed and underwritten by the United States, Ireland, and the United Kingdom, an international treaty.
Michael,
They should also recognize...
Right, sorry, just looking at what's happening, just very, very quickly, we're running out of time, just looking at how Brexit is playing out, do you think it is going to happen? Yes or no?
No, definitely not.
Okay. All right, definitely not. Maricha.
What they might be saying, definitely not.
Definitely not. Maricha, you wanted to jump in.
I have many cousins here that voted for Brexit
all right.
For all the wrong reasons, and they'll all change their minds if they get an opportunity.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, Michael, we're running out of time, but thank you very much for calling. Michael from Liverpool there. Maricha, you wanted to jump in.
On this program where people can call in about several topics, and whenever Brexit is one choice, this is all that people call about, and they're all coming from the UK, and it's kind of exemplary for the huge distraction that it is, but also if you listen to the people, which, you know, it's always a great opportunity to be in direct contact with viewers, you hear that there's deep division of views.
Sure.
And so I think with such divisive issues, it is important to get a broader consensus. We have coalition politics in the Netherlands, so we're very used to finding majorities around different issues, and I think maybe, you know, some of those lessons could be useful for the UK right now.
I agree totally with the sentiment, I really do. And having, you know, come to this place, I'm a big fan now of consensual politics. I really am. Wasn't always, I am now.
Yeah, I understand.
But can I just say on this, the problem here is that both sides, if you like, end up giving their prized possession, which is control. So you either end up not having the total severance with the European Union that you seek and being subject to the rules, which you kind of resent, obviously, or as a Remainer, you end up still being subject to the rules, but without that seat at the table which you prize so much. So that's why the compromise here, I'm afraid it doesn't exist. It actually doesn't work. It doesn't exist, and that's the problem, as it is in a pure compromise. I agree, though, you know, we have to take this discussion, isolate it within the UK and let the EU move on, hopefully with pro-European British policy.
Have another referendum.
We will certainly
have another referendum.
Talking about Brexit as we move forward. Okay, we do have time for Raw Politics. Your call, last word. All right, so this one I'm reading to you is from Greta Thunberg. This is what she told MEPs today. She said, if our house was falling apart, you wouldn't hold 3 emergency Brexit summits and no emergency summit regarding the breakdown of the climate and the environment. I mean, that was a powerful message from Greta Thunberg today to the MEPs.
Yeah, what a sharp young woman,
Right.
you know, quite an inspiration.
Exactly. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Join us again tomorrow. Have a good evening.